So, recording on big blue button. All right. So, um, workshop 2 is, um, let me just bring it up. So, you are supposed to create an assessment, a program that loads assessments from a file and displays it. And what you need to do over here, and the file that it's reading in the first line is going to tell how many records are about to come, and then based on that you need to do a dynamic memory allocation to allocate everything that is coming into the um, uh, into an assessment record. Um, Again, the very first line is an integer with an enter afterwards. It shows that's the number. Then it's going to be a double and a comma, and then after that it's going to be the name of the subject, and a new line character comes after that. So just for sake of practice, we're going to do the double dynamically too, which is absolutely unnecessary in real life. So because double is only one value, making it dynamic over here does not make sense. This is only done for practice purposes, so you demonstrate and learn how to allocate one single thing, and it's not always that an array is allocated dynamically. Single values can be allocated dynamically too. An assessment is going to have what essentially you are going to have as your dynamic memory would be something like this. So you will have just a second. You will have, so if this is the dynamic array of assessments, and you have series of assessments, oh, not that one. You have series of assessment dynamically allocated like an array, and that pointer is pointing to the array of assessments. And you have, let's say over here, 3 assessments. So that's 1, that's 1, 2, and 3 assessments. Each assessment has 2 pointers in it. One is the double pointer, the other one is the character pointer. Double pointer, character pointer, double pointer, character pointer. The first one will point to a single integer, a single double, and the second one will point to an array of characters dynamically. Again, the first one is going to point to a single double that is allocated dynamically. For some reason, this doesn't get my click. There you go. So that's that one, and here's this one. And the character arrays are like that. They could be anywhere in memory. That's why it's all gobbledygook over here. So that's like that. This points to here. That points to that one, and this one is pointing to this one. So when your job would be to be first see how many elements of assessment you have. Then after doing that, you are going to dynamically allocate this array. So that's the first thing that you're going to do. That's number 1. And then number 2 would be reading the values one by one and dynamically allocating the values inside each assessment as you are going through it. So after you're done with this thing, then you will process it the way it is asking. So this is the structure of memory. Let's continue to see what the project and what the workshop needs. Any questions down to this point? Let me clear this. Any questions? That's the thing. Any questions? Yes, Alan, go ahead. Lee Chan, Alan, please activate your microphone. Do not join in with listen only. If you have a question, activate your microphone and speak, please. I need to know your question. If you have a question, I need to know your question. Please activate your microphone and speak. Okay. So you have a question, and I'm not hearing any question, therefore. Anyways. All right. So let me continue. So the functions that you are going to implement, the first one's going to be the first three ones are going to be the ones that are actually reading the information from the file. So reads one integer, that's to read that single integer. Read double, to read one double from the file, returns true or false for success. And this one skips a comma, then it reads a C string no more than 60 characters. So we are assuming that the name of subjects cannot be more than 60 characters, but again, even that we are going to later set them dynamically. So this reads the character into CSTR, reads the 60 characters into CSTR, and you can use this scanf format to actually read it. And everything over here is done through with scanf. There is no IO stream involved in here. You don't need to use IO stream for this. Then so yeah, it's seeing through the reading from the file is all done through scanf. Then you're gonna create these functions for your dynamic memory allocation. The first one is gonna be free mem, which receives a reference of a pointer of an assessment and deletes all its memory. Okay. So this function will receive reference a dynamic assessment array, so and deletes all the assessments. So the deletion will happen like this. So it just doesn't delete the array. So the dynamic array will be deleted first, going through each element. So what you need to do to do that deletion, let me just make this white underneath so we can actually see. So the free mem over here, if you look at your screen, what it needs to do first is to go through every single let me just put myself on in busy so I can continue talking. People, my students are calling. Just a second. It doesn't want to set me to busy. Oh, it did. Okay, so I'm busy. Beautiful. All right. So yeah. So as I was saying, it has to go through before deleting the assessment itself, which is the one that I highlighted over here. Before doing that, it needs to one by one delete all the other ones. So let me see if I can point to it properly. So one by one, you have to go through every single one. So delete this one, delete that one, then delete this one, then delete that one, delete double, delete three. After you delete all the memories that the assessments are pointing to, then you delete the main array. Like this, you're not going to have any memory leaks. So that's what free memory is going to do. It's going to free all the resources occupied by the assessment. Are we okay down to this point? Are we okay with this? Tyler, you have a question. Those people who say no, first of all, I request not to log in as listen only so you can speak. Okay? Please do not log in as listen only so you can speak when you have a question. I would really appreciate if you do that. Please use a headset and connect with microphone unless you don't have one. Okay, so those people who say no, I need to know what your question is to be able to answer. Uh,
Hi, sir.
yes.
So, and I was wondering, why do we need to read the memories and all? I don't know that concept. Can you just tell me a
Why
bit
do you know
further?
why do we need to delete the memories of assessments, you mean?
Yes, sir.
Because they are dynamically allocated. If you don't do that, so let's say if we do not do this and only delete this, so assume that I'm only going to delete this, okay? Then what happens to all these memories that are occupied, that are still in memory? You follow what I'm saying? See, when these are dynamically allocated, when these are actually uh, created, have you been here from the beginning? So you know what the structure is for this? Or should I go back up and explain?
I joined a bit late, so
Okay, so
just
let me just explain what is that. So look at the structure over here. You see that? The
yes,
assessment structure is holding everything dynamically. So mark is a dynamic memory and title is a dynamic memory. And because these are both dynamic, they have to get deallocated not to have memory leak. So we have two dynamic memories over here. One is the array of assessments, which are these. So this is one assessment, two assessments, and three assessments. Are we okay with this?
yes, sir.
Okay. Now each one of these assessments have two pointers in them. Got it?
Yes,
If I so as soon first I'm going to create the assessment, then after I create the assessment like this, I'm going to start reading the file and putting everything inside this array dynamically. So I'm going to put this one as dynamic, that one as dynamic. Every single thing over here will be dynamically allocated and pointing to things outside of the array. All these things are dynamic. One dynamic thing, two dynamic things, three, four, five, and six. Now, if the program ends, and when program ends, if I delete only this one, then all these circles going to stay in memory, and that's memory leak. Before deleting the main array that I created, I have to delete the individuals over here. Okay, for this, um, let me see if I can actually show you an example for it. So, you know what? Actually, I'm going to create, um, let me wipe these out. I'm just going to create a project and show you an example for it. And another person over here is saying, and thank you very much, Lee Chan, for telling people that they should speak, not typing. Thank you. What people are still doing. Uh, Peter is saying, I think we do need IO stream to include file objects. No, you don't. You need CSTDIO. File is um, defined in CSTDIO, not IO stream. IO streams working with files are an absolutely different thing, a completely different ballgame. That's not the same. So I'm gonna go in workshop 2 over here, and in here I'm gonna put something like uh, overview. Okay, so this is the overview session, and in overview session I'm gonna select a folder, and in here I'm gonna create the code for it. So that's the code for the overview that I'm gonna give you an example for. So uh, wait a minute. Just a second. Something has happened. I have to pause the meeting and uh, I think another meeting is happening. Just give me a second. I have to check something. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and then I'm gonna come back. My apologies. Hold on. Resume. All right. So now let's bring up Visual Studio. Before doing anything, I just want to make sure I'm not talking to myself. So can everybody hear me? All right, perfect. My apologies. So answering to the question of how all these things are going to happen, just to give you an example, uh, let's say I create something like this. So let me just add a new item. I'm gonna create a program for it. Okay, so let's say in this program of mine,
Sorry, Professor.
yes.
We
Go.
can see your screen.
Oh, you can't see, of course, because I haven't
Yeah.
shared it. My apologies.
Thank you so much.
Nice. Thank you very much for activating the microphone and let me know, Francisco. Thank you. Okay, so IO stream. I'm gonna now you can see it hopefully using namespace std. All right, so just to let's say I have a structure over here. Let's say struct. I'm gonna create a struct, and this structure, let's call it um, what should I do? What should I call it? Um, let's call this one. I'm just trying to come up with something very quickly. So you see, so struct. I'm gonna say in here. Um, Something that is not difficult and it's easy to mm, I'm gonna create a structure. I'm gonna call it um, let's call it an array. Okay, so this array is a name, so I'm gonna call it ARR. Okay, and this array of mine, it has an integer pointer that is an array, so that's the data of the array, integer pointer m data of the array, and let's say it has an integer length. So this array of mine is a dynamic array that is supposed to hold series of integers in it. Now, if I want to allocate this thing as one array, I can simply say something, do something like, let's say ARR A, and I can say A dot m data will be equal to new int, and in here let's say I have 10 integers, and I'm going to set the len a dot len to 10. Do we understand this? Okay, now if I
Professor,
yes,
how come you didn't put like M in front of the len?
I'm a
Like
bad
M
boy,
on.
that's why.
Okay,
Okay,
cool.
all right. Is it better now? All right.
Yeah,
All right.
thanks.
So, okay. So if I do it like this, I'm perfectly good. So I can actually set all these things up. So I have one integer, one array. And when I'm done with this thing, I have to say delete, in this case, a dot m data, and delete the array of integers with absolutely no problem. I don't need to delete the length because it's not dynamic. Are we okay with this? Okay, now if I create a dynamic array of this ARR, so it becomes essentially two-dimensional array. So that's for a single one. If I create over here ARR, and I'm gonna put it over here and I'm gonna put 3. But I don't want to do that. I want to make it dynamic. So I'm gonna say I have an array of those ARRs, and I have them as new ARR3. So I have 3 of those. So essentially I have to say delete I when I'm done. Are we okay with this? Okay. But here I can do the delete because I didn't allocate anything in the three ARRs. If in here I do something like this, for integer I set to 0, I less than 3, and I plus plus. If I say over here I, they're all I, so I'm going to call this one N so I don't have to say I'm going to say IN. That's, I think, makes it easier. So if I say over here IN dot mdata is equal to new int 100, and then I say IN dot mlength is set to 100, just to follow what I've done at the top. Now, if you look at this array of mine, I have two series of dynamic memory allocation. One to allocate the three ARRs. The other one is to allocate data for each element, which essentially makes it exactly like the other one that I explained. So this is ARR. So I'm going to actually, this is I. So I'm going to put actually over here so we can actually see when I say when it's I, what do I mean by that? So this is I, capital I actually, okay? And this I of mine is actually pointing to three ARR structures. And each of these ARR structures are now pointing separately to 100 integers, 1, 2, and 3. Now each one of these things are pointing to 100 integers somewhere in memory. Okay? Do we understand this? Okay, if this is the case, deleting I at